Good afternoon, students. I hope I'm already audible. Shubranil, good afternoon. Rather, good evening. Good evening. Right. Now, in our previous lecture, क्या discuss किया था हमने? We have talked about the factors responsible for state formation during the Mahajanpad age. We had seen as a result of a combination of these factors, two types of polities emerged. One known as the Mahajanapadas and the other known as Janasanghas. What was the nature of power distribution in Mahajanapadas? Was power distributed between different individuals or was it concentrated in the hands of a single absolute monarch? Power was concentrated in the hands of a single absolute monarch. How about the Janasanghas? Power was shared among a close group of aristocratic elites. According to the contemporary literature, these aristocratic elites referred to themselves as Rajas. And according to the contemporary Buddhist texts at Vaishali, there were as many as 7,077 such Rajas who exercised power, who shared power. ठीक है? Did all the Rajas come from different backgrounds? No. Many of them belong to the same clan. For example, the Anguttara Nikaya informs us that in Vaishali, there were either 8 or 9 clans, such as the Lichvis, the Videhas, etc., who shared power. Right? What was the process of decision making? In the Mahajanpadas, all important decisions were taken unilaterally by the ruler, by the king. Did the same scenario exist in the Janasanghas also? No, since power was shared, the decision-making responsibility would also be shared. So, collective decision-making was prevalent. The contemporary Buddhist literature informs us that at Vaishali, which was the capital of the Vajji Janasangha or the Vajji Confederacy, an annual meeting of all the Rajas used to take place at a place called the Anagar, where important policy decisions were taken. However, day-to-day executive authority was in the hands of a much smaller council. A smaller executive council was responsible for taking decisions on a day-to-day basis for day-to-day administration. ठीक है? What was the nature of taxation in the Mahajanapadas? And how was it different from the system of taxation in the Janasanghas? बताइए. In the Mahajanapadas, all the taxes collected were sent to the royal treasury, right? So, centralized taxation system with a single set of tax officials existed. Would it be the same case for the Janasanghas also? No. Over here, each Raja controlled his own tax region and activity. Thus, there was no centralization of taxation over here. Okay. With regards to the military, one change from the previous period was that now the different territorial kingdoms started maintaining their permanent militaries. So, a centralized permanent standing army under the rulers supreme control emerged. And what about the Janasanghas? Each Raja or clan had his own permanent army. Therefore, there was no monopoly over violence in the Janasanghas. Conflict could erupt at any time between two rival rajas or clans, two or more rival rajas or clans. So possibility of civil war कहाँ पे ज्यादा होगा, in the Mahajanapads or Janasanghas? इन दी जनसंघास, सिविल वॉर, इंटरनल वॉर जो होता है जनसंघास में ज्यादा होगा, क्योंकि यहाँ पे हर राजा के पास, हर क्लैन के पास अपना ही एक मिलिट्री है, राइट, एंड दे वुड ट्राई टू सेटल स्कोर्स थ्रू द यूज ऑफ फोर्स. Similarly, when it comes to the bureaucracy, what are we going to see in the Mahajanapadas? Are we going to find a well-developed, large, elaborate bureaucracy or not? Yes. A large, elaborate, and centralized bureaucracy consisting of which kind of officials? Elected officials, hereditary officials, or appointed officials? Appointed officials. Officials appointed by the king. And who would they be answerable to? To the king. They were also accountable to the king. While in the Janasanghas, what are we going to find? A centralized bureaucracy or a fragmented bureaucracy? Fragmented bureaucracy. Every clan or raja would maintain his own set of officials. As a rule, would the officials always be appointed? No. While in some cases officials may have been appointed by powerful clans or rajas, in most cases, most officials were hereditary in nature. Right? Now, every clan would have its leader, right? He would be the leader of the most dominant family of that clan. He, however, would depend on the support of other important families. And therefore, different aspects or different subjects of administration would be permanently assigned to these families in order to permanently maintain their support of the ruling clan, ruling family. Okay? So offices would be distributed among the clans in a hereditary manner. The accountability of these hereditary officials to the clan leader would be relatively high or relatively low? Relatively low, since these are hereditary officials. Accountability of the officials to clan leaders or rajas was limited. Okay? Now, what about the position of Brahmins? Yesterday we had looked at the process of state formation, जहाँ पे हमने social factors भी consider किए थे. The position of Brahmins would be stronger in the Mahajanapadas or in the Janasanghas? In the Mahajanapadas. They enjoyed a higher position. Status and power. Why? Because they were the ones in charge of legitimizing the role of the king in the eyes of the people. They provided religious legitimacy to the rulers. And as a result, they would get something in return. Kya? They would be given wealth, position, and power. They would have a great degree of influence when it comes to the political matters of the state. Further, the social order, education, justice would all be in their hands. And as a result, what would be the condition or what would be the attitude of the Mahajanpadas towards the Varnashram Dharma system? Positive or negative? Positive. So, Varnashram Dharma system was enforced more rigorously in the Mahajanpadas. In the case of the Janasanghas, Brahmins were largely excluded from power. The Janasanghas were the result of a coalition between Kshatriyas and Vaishyas. Right? Brahmins were excluded from power. Who enjoyed the highest position? Kshatriyas were dominant and Vaishyas enjoyed great influence within the political system. As a result, would the laws of the Varnashram Dharma system be observed rigidly? No. The Varnashra Dharma was observed in a diluted form, or its rules were diluted to suit the local conditions. And as a result, Brahmanical literature में क्या दिखेगा? Would they give legitimacy to this kind of political formation or not? No. You can further write contemporary Brahmanical literature doesn't recognize Janasanghas as a legitimate form of government. As a legitimate form of government. ठीक है? Now, it was partly due to this fact that both Buddha as well as Mahavir were products of which kind of political system? Mahajanpad or Jansangha? Jansangha. Both of them came from Jansanghas. Right? The Buddha was a scion of the Sakya clan, which ruled over the city-state of Kapilvastu. Mahavir, on the other hand, was a member of the Jantrika clan, one of the ruling clans of the Vajji confederacy. Okay? So, further right over here. Due to the anti-Brahmanical attitude in the Janasanghas, it is not surprising that both the Buddha and the Mahavir were products of such societies. The Buddha belonged to the Sakya clan of Kapilvastu, whereas the Mahavir belonged to the Jantrika clan of the Vajji confederacy. Belonged to the Jantrika clan of the Vajji confederacy. Okay? Now, if you look at the locational features of the Mahajanapadas and the Janasanghas, are you going to find any differences or not? Yes. Most of the Mahajanapadas where would they be located? In the hills or the fertile plains? Fertile plains. And most of the Janasanghas would be located in the foothills of the Himalayas. These would include Panchal, Malla, Vajji, etc. While others would be located in the northern Indus Valley, right? Such as Kamboj. Okay? Or upper Indus Valley. This was also a hilly region. Right? Now, why do you think that most Mahajanapadas emerged in the alluvial plains and why not in the foothills of the Himalayas, and why Janasanghas were the ones which emerged in the foothills of the Himalayas? Because over here, chief economic activity would be agriculture. Over here, chief economic activity could not be agriculture. In fact, if you look at the earliest trade routes connecting different parts of India, they traveled across the foothills of the Himalayas. Therefore, trade and commerce was the most important activity over here. Who would be the wealthiest sections over here? The traders, right? Traders coming from both the Kshatriya as well as Vaishya background. And because the Vaishyas were, because the Kshatriyas were participating not only in ruling and warfare, but also in trade, would the Brahmins support it or oppose it? They opposed it. Therefore, a natural alliance would emerge between the Vaishyas and the Kshatriyas. They would emerge as the most powerful groups in the Janasanghas. And over here, what would happen? Centralization of power could take place. Here, power initially would be divided between different clans of the same tribe, but later, because there was greater resource availability, and as one of those clans moved ahead, they would be able to overpower the other clans and centralize power in their own hands. Gradually, this clannish or tribal system would transform into a monarchical system. यहाँ पे क्या होगा? क्योंकि resources बहुत ज्यादा नहीं है, the different clans or the different groups, they are never going to be able to resolve their conflict. So the process of state formation is going to be interrupted, right? So Janasanghas were in fact the result of the incomplete process of state formation. Logical conclusion क्या था इनका? महाजनपदास. तो ट्रैजेक्टरी क्या है? ट्राइबल पॉलिटीज to Janasanghas to Mahajanapadas. What is the final stage of this entire process? The stage of Mahajanpad. Those states which were not able to reach this stage but were still transitioning away from tribal polities, they were Janasanghas. So they remained trapped in the stage of Janasangha only and could not graduate to become Mahajanpadas. And why they could not graduate? Due to relative resource deprivation. The areas that they were located in were not economically entirely self-sufficient. And as a result, जो productive base था वो काफी छोटा था. So to begin with, none of the clans or rajas were in a position to establish dominance by overcoming their rivals. ठीक है? वाई दे वर नॉट सेंट्रलाइज, इसका फैक्टर ये है क्योंकि इतना बड़ा रिसोर्स बेस था ही नहीं कि कोई एक सिंगल अथॉरिटी इमर्ज होकर के पूरे एरिया के ऊपर अपना प्रभुत्व जमा सके, राइट? तो कॉन्फ्लिक्ट और कंपटीशन बिटवीन डिफरेंट एलिट्स ऑलवेज रिमेन्ड इन प्लेस इन दी जनसंघास. और महाजनपदास, they were able to reach the stage of monarchical hereditary states was because of their relative resource abundance. Their agricultural base was larger, and as urbanization took place in the Ganga Valley, their production industry as well as trade and commerce became superior to those of the Janasanghas. ठीक है? And in such a scenario, सबसे अर्लीस्ट स्टेज में क्या होगा? There would be different clans who were competing against each other, right? But each of these clans have access to a greater resource base. And the more powerful clans were able to establish dominance through internal conflict. Right? तो जब ज्योग्राफी आप कवर करोगे तो जब प्रेसिपिटेशन का टॉपिक कवर हो रहा होगा तो यू विल बी acquainted with one of the theories of precipitation कि रेन ड्रॉप्स का फॉर्मेशन होता कैसे है. तो उसमें से एक थ्योरी है कोएलेसेंस कंडेंसेशन हाइपोथेसिस कि मतलब कि मान लो इन द क्लाउड्स very small droplets of water exist almost in a vapor form. As the temperature starts to drop because the clouds are very high और जितना ऊपर जाएंगे टेम्परेचर उतना ड्रॉप होगा, then these vapor clouds start to condense. छोटे छोटे water droplets बनने लगते हैं. And as the temperature decreases and decreases, what is going to happen? The water droplets, their size is going to increase. Now, this is not going to affect the entire cloud in the same manner. Some water droplets are going to become relatively larger. And as they become relatively larger and larger, what are they going to do? They are going to absorb the smaller water droplets that surround them, thus becoming even larger. और ये जो इस स्टेज पे पहुंचे हैं, they are going to become even larger now. तो आसपास के भी water droplets को absorb कर लेंगे, right? And then finally when they are at the critical weight, they are going to fall down in the form of rainfall, liquid rain, right? Now this is the same process or similar process that took place in the case of state formation in the Mahajanapadas, because some of the clans were able to utilize the virtuous cycle of higher trade, production, higher agriculture, production, trade, and taxation to their advantage in a manner that was much more efficient than the neighboring clans. They emerged as the most powerful in that entire neighborhood. They were able to absorb maybe 1 or 2 or 3 or all of the neighboring clans, right? ऐसे ही कोई उसी एरिया में दूसरे रीजन में मान लो एक एरिया है, इसमें 8-9 क्लैंस हैं. मान लो ये वाला क्लैन अपने नेबर्स को ऑब्जर्व कर लेता है, ये वाला क्लैन अपने नेबर्स को ऑब्जर्व कर लेता है, राइट? तो नाउ 2 कंटेंडर्स फॉर पावर इमर्ज and they are going to fight with each other. Which of them are more, whichever is more efficient, they'll be able to establish dominance. ठीक है? And क्योंकि यहाँ पे जनसंघास में the resource base itself was not large enough, therefore polity instead of becoming consolidated became permanently fragmented in nature. Clear? So ये है इन दोनों के बीच में डिफरेंस. समझ में आया है? Now Coming to the Republican polities during the Mahajanpad age. Let us look at their features. When we say Republican polities, we are actually referring to the Janasanghas. शिवरानिल अभी तक जो डिस्कस किया है सब समझ में आया है ना? All right. Now, write down. देखो features. Write down. The 6th century BCE witnessed early state formation. Early state formation as tribal governments transformed into a relatively more organized republican form of government. Full stop. Next point. These republican polities known as Janasanghas, existed either in the Indus region, or in the foothills of the Himalayas, where relative resource deprivation had interrupted the process of state formation, and prevented the emergence of monarchical polities. Within brackets, Mahajanapadas. ठीक है, क्या मतलब है इसका, ये तो क्लियर है ना कि relative resource deprivation had interrupted the process of state formation and prevented their transformation into Mahajanapadas. Next point लिखो. In Buddhist literature, many Janasanghas have been mentioned. Full stop. They could broadly be divided into two categories. A and B. A. Janasanghas consisting of a single clan such as the Sakyas of which place? Kapilavastu. The bullies of Alakappa. Bullies of Alkappa. The Kesala Puttas of Pippalavan. Sorry. Kesala Puttas of Pippalavan and the Bhaggas of Susumgiri. Where were all of them located? वही यूपी नेपाल बॉर्डर और बिहार नेपाल बॉर्डर along the foothills of the Himalayas. ठीक है, कौन कौन से हैं? साक्याज, बुल्लीज, केसलपुत्तास एंड भग्गास. They ruled over relatively smaller Janasanghas. They are not considered to be Mahajanapadas. And secondly, the relatively larger Mahajanapadas, relatively larger Janasanghas consisted of multiple clans. Such as the Vajjis with their capital at Vaishali, consisted of 8 or 9 clans. And the Mallas with their capital at Piprahava consisting of 9 clans. Bhaggas of Susumgiri. Bhaggas of Susumgiri. ठीक है, नेक्स्ट पॉइंट लिखो. इतना समझ में आया है? नेक्स्ट पॉइंट राइट डाउन. Their administrative structure. Next main point. Their administrative machinery or structure was quite simple. सब पॉइंट्स में लिखो. Each sangha was governed by a council of many rajas. Council of many rajas who met annually at a place called Thanagar to take important policy decisions. to take important policy decisions. Full stop. Were women part of such councils? No. So, no women. No women were part of this council. Next subpoint. However, day to day executive authority was in the hands of a much smaller executive council consisting of the most powerful rajas. Full stop. Next subpoint. The administrative machinery was highly decentralized, with each Raja having separate taxation, bureaucracy, and military. Full stop. Administrative disputes were usually settled through which process? Deliberation or conflict? Deliberation. Through discussions collectively. But this was not always the case. Okay? Sometimes internal strife became inevitable. Sometimes internal strife became inevitable. Next arises the question, how Republican were these Republican polities in the real sense? Write down. The so-called Republican polities were in reality oligarchies. मतलब क्या हुआ? It was ruled by a ring of aristocrats. Power, instead of being concentrated in the hands of a single individual, it was concentrated in a small group of elites, a closed group of elites. Write down. Subpoint. The ruling elite consisted of a closed group based on clan or varna. Based on clan or varna. What was the position of the ordinary people of the Janasanghas? Was it any different from the people of the Mahajanapadas, the monarchical polities? No, it was largely the same. There was almost no difference between them. The same kind of restrictions faced by the ordinary people in the Mahajanapadas were faced by the people of the Janasanghas as well. The position of the ordinary people was no different than the people of the Mahajanapadas. They were restricted to the same kinds of restrictions. ठीक है? Example, the people of Piprahava were forced to stand along the streets by the rulers when Buddha visited the Malla Confederacy. Had they been actual republican polities, could the rulers have been able to force the people to do this? No. Were the rulers in fact elected by the people? No, they were a closed group who were all related to each other, belonging to the same clan or Varna lineage, right? Did the people participate in day-to-day governance activities? No. Did they participate in policy making? No. तो ये केवल नाम के लिए रिपब्लिक्स थे. In reality, they were oligarchies. Next point लिखो. In fact, often, the common people of the Janasanghas were in a poorer condition. They were worse off than the people of the Mahajanapadas. Why? Because सिविल वॉर कहाँ पे ज्यादा फ्रीक्वेंटली होता था, महाजनपदास में या जनसंघास में? जनसंघास में. Which of these polities were able to provide their subjects with better governance, better security, better defense? महाजनपदास. यहाँ पे क्या होगा? डिसीजन मेकिंग डिलेड होगा, पॉलिटी फ्रैक्चर्ड है, आर्मी फ्रैक्चर्ड है, there is going to be disagreement between the ruling among the rulers, and therefore people are going to be left on their own. So they also had to contend with poorer defense, security, that is law, order, and justice, and poorer governance on the whole. Due to the complicated process of decision making. In case of natural calamities, which kind of state would be able to respond more proactively? Janasanghas or Mahajanapads? Mahajanapads. So, in case of natural calamities, Mahajanapads were better equipped to rehabilitate their subjects. ठीक है? Is this clear? Subjects. Now, gradually, as the Mahajanapadas became stronger and stronger, their ambitions are going to expand as well, right? They are going to start fighting amongst each other. And in the conflict between the Mahajanapadas and Janasanghas, who would always emerge victorious? Mahajanapadas, right? So we need to look at the different reasons for the decline of the Janasanghas. Write down. Number one, their resource base was smaller than the Mahajanapadas that were located. Mahajanapadas ज़्यादातर कहाँ पे थे? Alluvial plains में, that were located in the fertile alluvial plains of the Ganga Valley. ठीक है? Next point. दूसरा reason. In case of a conflict, one way to weaken your enemy is to sow discord within, to create confusion within, to create a conflict within the enemy camp. ये करना कहाँ पे ज्यादा आसान होगा? Among the Janasangha Rajas, right? They are already jealous of each other. Many of them are already hostile with each other. So it would be easy to endorse one or more of the prominent Rajas to the enemy side by the ambitious ruler of a Mahajanpad, leaving the others alone. So as a result, the decline of the Janasanghas would also be explained by this reason. Write down. It was easier to sow dissension or discord within the ranks of the ruling elites in the Janasanghas? Who were already jealous and hostile, jealous and hostile towards each other, towards each other. Thirdly, the Mahajanapadas also had some relative advantages over the Janasanghas, over the Janasanghas. जैसे कि they did not suffer from lack of inner cohesion. They did not suffer from lack of inner cohesion. Full stop. The polity, taxation, and military were centralized under one ruler with a singular objective. Okay? So in this scenario, the entire state machinery of the Mahajanapadas could be oriented towards the success of the ruler in any conflict. On the other hand, in the Janasanghas क्या देखने के लिए मिलेगा? The state machinery would function in a disjointed manner. It would pull in different directions. So there is no single ruler, no single objective, right? So एक तो ये factor है. Second, write down. Next sub point. The Mahajanapadas had a more effective decision making process. They had the ability to take quick decisions as compared to the Janasanghas, where consensus would be required between the prominent ruling clans and the Rajas. Thirdly, they also enjoyed distinct diplomatic advantages. Since all the power was concentrated in the hands of a single ruler rather than different clans and rajas, therefore, it would be difficult for the rivals of monarchical states to form separate alliances with the ruler, right? So, with the other important figures in that kingdom. Whereas it would be very easy in the case of the जनसंघास कि एक राजा के साथ एक अग्रीमेंट कर लिया, दूसरे क्लैन के साथ दूसरा अग्रीमेंट कर लिया, तीसरे क्लैन के साथ कोई और अग्रीमेंट कर लिया. So they would be working at different diplomatic purposes in the Janasanghas, whereas this would not be the case in the Mahajanapadas. ठीक है? Fourthly लिखो, the weight of history was also against the Janasanghas. मतलब क्या हुआ इसका? Mahajanapadas were a more evolved form of polity than the Janasanghas. Janasanghas were the result of the interrupted process of state formation. Mahajanapadas were the final product of the process of state formation during the second urbanization age, during the post-Vedic age. ठीक है? Therefore, resource mobilization, resource centralization and effective governance ये किसके ज्यादा फीचर्स होंगे? महाजनपदास के या जनसंघास के? महाजनपदास के. So as a whole, they were far more effective and efficient. तो हिस्ट्री का आपने सुना होगा द आर्क ऑफ हिस्ट्री, एक पर्टिकुलर आर्क होता है. ये हमने यहाँ पे देखने की भी कोशिश करी थी दैट इन द प्रोसेस ऑफ स्टेट फॉर्मेशन ड्यूरिंग दिस पीरियड, this was the arc of history. There were three stages, right? First stage of tribal polity, second stage of Janasanghas, and third stage of Mahajanapadas. As the polity transformed from tribal towards Mahajanpada period, resource mobilization, organization, defensive and offensive capability, administration, centralization, all of these are going to progressively increase, improve. So Janasanghas were at a lower stage of evolution as compared to the Mahajanapadas. Clear hai? So क्या लिखा है आपने? The weight of history was also against the Janasanghas. Write down sub point में. Historical development over the preceding centuries had favored the emergence of monarchical kingdoms. Full stop. Therefore, comma, the Janasangha form of polity was an anachronistic phenomenon. Anachronistic phenomenon. ठीक है? क्रोनोस का मतलब होता है टाइम एंड एनाक्रोनिस्टिक का मतलब something which does not belong in that particular time period. So it may have been useful in a previous time period but was anachronistic, out of time during this stage when monarchical kingdoms had already emerged. Full stop. Was an anachronistic phenomenon. They represented a less evolved and less efficient form of government. Okay? And as a result of a combination of these factors, the Janasanghas of the Mahajanpad period were gradually absorbed by the more dominant Mahajanapadas. So write down. Next main point लिखो. As a result of these factors, comma, the Janasanghas were gradually overcome by the more evolved Mahajanapadas. 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 ठीक है. Now, at the same time, ये कहना गलत होगा that Janasanghas were present only during the Mahajanpad period. The history of Janasanghas is in fact more than 1000 years long. So next point, write down, next main point. At the same time, the history of the Janasanghas was more than 1000 years long. The point लिखो. While the earliest Janasanghas appeared during the Mahajanpad age, comma, they also emerged during subsequent periods. Next point, Mahapadmananda what is he given the credit for? For creating the first empire in Indian history. The first emperor of India. Claimed to have uprooted all the Kshatriya kingdoms of the north, including the Sakyas, Bullis, including the Sakyas, Bullis, Kesalaputtas, and Baggas. Full stop. Despite this, next point. Despite this, post-Mauryan Buddhist literature mentions the presence of some sanghas ruled by Kshatriyas such as the Arjunias, Lichhavis, and Malavas. They were all once again located in the same region. यूपी बिहार का जो नेपाल बॉर्डर है, फुटहिल्स वाला रीजन, वहां पर. नेक्स्ट पॉइंट. Chandragupta the first. Next point. Chandragupta the first. Who was he? The founder of the Gupta dynasty. Boasted of marrying Kumar Devi. Of marrying Kumar Devi. Who was she? A Lishvi Kshatriya princess of Vaishali. Of Vaishali. Okay? In fact, it is believed that the Guptas were not Kshatriyas originally. They came from the Vaishya Varna. And the later Guptas following after Chandragupta were able to claim Kshatriya status because of this Lichvi connection. Okay? That Chandragupta I was able to marry a Lichvi princess means that Lichvis existed as late as the Gupta period. Next point. Samudragupta. The greatest Gupta emperor, took the title Lichvi Duhitra. Took the title Lichvi Duhitra. Its literal meaning is the son of the daughter of the Lichvis or grandson of the Lichvis. Okay? And he further goes on to claim in the Prayag Prashasti, which is his great inscription on the Allahabad pillar, that he also destroyed or uprooted all the principalities of North India, including all the Janasanghas, reducing them to political irrelevance, insignificance. Right? All the Janasanghas of North India. Uprooted or destroyed all the Janasanghas of North India. Now हमको यहाँ देखने के लिए क्या मिल रहा है? A clear pattern is emerging that when the centralized monarchical powers are strong, at that point of time, Janasanghas are under threat. They contract. But when the imperial power declines, they are replaced by Janasanghas. So Janasanghas were probably never completely uprooted. They were probably incorporated into the imperial system of the monarchical states. Write down. Main point. This indicates a clear pattern where Janasanghas. Disappeared during phases of monarchical ascendancy. During phases of monarchical ascendancy and re-emerged as independent units or independent polities during times of monarchical decline. ठीक है? Next point. As such, the Janasanghas were probably never completely destroyed. They were simply incorporated into the imperial system by strong rulers and later asserted independence. Once the empire weakened. ठीक है? Is this clear? तो ये हो गया the Republican polities or the Janasanghas. Now, total how many Mahajanapadas were there? 16 Mahajanapadas. क्या नाम है इनके? गांधार, काम्भोज, कुरु, पांचाल, मत्स्य, सूरसेन, कौशल, काशी, वत्सा, छेदी, मल्ला, वज्जी, मगध, अंगा, अवंती, एंड अस्मका. The names of these 16 Mahajanapadas are mentioned in two separate books, a piece of Buddhist literature and a piece of Jain literature. बुद्धिस्ट लिटरेचर कौन सा? अंगुत्तरा निकाय. This is one of the 5 volumes or Nikayas of the Sutta Pitaka. ठीक है, 3 पिटाकास है ना, दी सुत्त पिटाका, विनय पिटाका, अभिधम्म पिटाका. तो ये सूत पिटाका का एक वॉल्यूम है, वन ऑफ दी 5 वॉल्यूम्स. एंड सेकेंड सोर्स इज परिशिष्ट परवान. This is a 12th century Sanskrit Jain text written by Hemchandra. Now, although many of the names mentioned in both these texts are similar, there are a few differences. And out of these two, Anguttara Nikaya and Parishisht Parvan, which of these is considered more authentic? कौन सा list? The one offered by the Anguttara Nikaya, because Anguttara Nikaya was actually written down during the Mahajanpad period itself. ये जो है book, this belongs to the 12th century. Now, the capitals of these Mahajanpadas. गांधार का, तक्षशिला, काम्भोज का, राजपुरा, कुरु का, इंद्रप्रस्थ, पांचाल का, Ahichhatra, this was the northern capital, and Pampilya, this was the southern capital. मत्स्य का विराटनगर, also known as बैरात. सूरसेन का मथुरा, कौशल का श्रावस्ती. This was the northern capital. Southern capital was Saket. This was the old name of Ayodhya. ठीक है, also known as Kaushal itself. Kashi, capital was the city of Kashi itself, also known as Varanasi or Rajghat. Vatsa, the capital was कौशाम्बी. Chedi, the capital was a place called Suktimati. Malla, the capital was Pavapuri. वज्जी, कैपिटल का नाम क्या था? ये बताया हमने कितनी बार? वैशाली. Magad, capital was, earlier capital was Rajgir, also known as Rajgriha or Grihivrij, and later capital was, बाद में कैपिटल कहां शिफ्ट किया गया? पाटलिपुत्र. Anga, the capital was चंपा और चंपापुरी. अवंती, two separate capitals. Ujjain, also known as Ujjaini, was the northern capital, and the southern capital was Mahishmati. We are not certain about its exact location. Mahishmati क्या है, right? And Asmaka का capital पोटाना और पोटाली. So these names are similar to that of Mahabharata. Is there any connection between them? Could be a source too. Mahabharata, in fact, is considered to be a much later work. It is believed to have been given its first final form during the Gupta age. So 4th, 5th century AD का है, right? Anguttara Nikaya, on the other hand, is a work that was composed in the early 5th century BC. तो दोनों के बीच में करीब 1000 साल का फासला है. Mahabharata is a mythological epic primarily, and it obviously derives many of its stories from previous existing legends and stories. उसको फ्रेमवर्क भी दिया गया है माइथोलॉजिकल की. बहुत पुरानी कहानी है. ये जो एंशिएंट किंगडम्स थे इनके बीच में लड़ाई हो रही थी, राइट? तो हम महाभारत को सोर्स की तरह इसलिए नहीं मान सकते हैं because fact is blended so deeply with fiction, with mythology, that it is very, very difficult to neatly separate the two of them. Now, efforts are ongoing to use the historical information in Mahabharata to create a richer picture of Indian past, but उसके अपने कुछ shortcomings हैं, कुछ limitations हैं, right? Clear है शुभ्रानिल? All right. Now, if you look at these places on a map of India, तो सिचुएशन कुछ इस तरह से दिखती है. सबसे पहला कौन सा स्टेट देखा था हमने? गांधार, राइट? इट इज लोकेटेड समवेयर ओवर हियर, इस वाले रीजन में। सेकंड काम्भोज, ये इस वाले एरिया में है, नंबर 2। थर्ड कुरु, with its capital at Indraprasth. Indraprasth was the ancient name of Delhi. ये यहाँ पे है। Then पांचाल, अहिछत्र और काम्पिल्या, this is over here. Then मत्स्य, ये जयपुर अलवर वाला रीजन जो है, मत्स्य। Then सूरसेन, रीजन ऑफ मथुरा, भरतपुर, आगरा, ये वाला रीजन, ये हो गया। देन कौशल, दिस इज ओवर हियर इन नॉर्दर्न यूपी, नेपाल बॉर्डर के पास। नंबर 7 विद इट्स कैपिटल एट श्रावस्ती एंड अयोध्या, साकेत। देन काशी, दिस इज फर्दर टू दी साउथ ईस्ट। यहां पर काशी with its capital at Varanasi. Then वत्स, ये यहां पर with its capital at Kaushambi. Then छेदी, this is over here with its capital at सुक्तिमती, ये सदर्न यूपी और मध्य प्रदेश में है, त्रिपुरी वाले रीजन में। देन मल्ला with its capital at Pavapuri, this is in north eastern UP and western Bihar. Then Vajji, this is in northern Bihar, capital at Vaishali. Then Magadha, this is in central Bihar with its capital at Patliputra and Rajgir. Then Anga, this is in eastern Bihar, just on the border of West Bengal. Bhagalpur wala region. Capital is Champa, which is located in present day Bhagalpur only. Then Avanti along the along the Narmada river. थोड़ा सा और नॉर्थ होना चाहिए था, वो वत्सा थोड़ा ज्यादा बड़ा बन गया, राइट? कैपिटल्स उज्जैनी एंड माहेश्मती। एंड फाइनली अस्मका और असका, दिस कैपिटल एट कोटाना along the Godavari river. Now out of these जनसंघास कौन कौन से हैं? ये वाला कुरु is a जनसंघा, पांचाल is a जनसंघा, मल्ला is a जनसंघा and Vajji is a जनसंघा along with काम्भोज। ठीक है, दिख रहा है ना मैप पर कि कहां पे मिलते हैं? इधर along the foothills of the Himalayas और in the Indus Valley region। हाँ, कुरु, पांचाल, मल्ला, वज्जी और काम्भोज। जनसंघास कौन कौन से हैं? कुरु, पांचाल, मल्ला, वज्जी एंड काम्भोज। क्लियर है? नाउ throughout the Mahajanpad period, what was the nature of the relationship between these different territorial polities? Both cooperation as well as conflict. जो आर्क ऑफ हिस्ट्री जा रहा था, ट्राइबल पॉलिटिक्स से शुरू हुआ था, फिर उसके बाद जनसंघास पर पहुंचा था, महाजनपद पर पहुंचा. नेक्स्ट स्टेज क्या होगा इसका? Even more larger scale political consolidation in the form of an empire, right? So these different Janasanghas and Mahajanpadas were busy fighting against each other in order to consolidate power, in order to gain territory, resources, and more authority, right? So constant warfare is going to be a feature of the Mahajanpad age as well. Right? Now, this process would last for more than 200 years, at the end of which of these Mahajanpadas would be the most successful? It would not only bring all other Mahajanpadas under its control, but establish the first all India empire in India. Magadha. Magadha was the most successful one. तो अब हमें देखना है what were the factors for the success of Magadha. And साथ में इसके बाद the process of empire building by Magadha. Now, most historians agree that Magadha was the one which was successful in creating an all India empire was because of its geographical location. Okay? So, according to them, Magadha enjoyed some important geo-economic, geostrategic, and geocultural or ideological or social advantages. What were the economic advantages of Magadha's location? Where was Magadha located? सेंट्रल बिहार में. किस रीजन में आता है, किस फिजियोग्राफिक रीजन में आता है इंडिया के? गंगा वैली में. बी मोर स्पेसिफिक, मिड गंगा वैली में, राइट? सो मगध हैड एक्सेस टू एक्सट्रीमली फर्टाइल land, right, which was ideal for cultivation of which kind of crop? Paddy. What is the advantage of paddy cultivation with regards to or with respect to wheat cultivation? The per unit area calorific yield of paddy is 4 times as much as wheat. तो एक paddy का stock जो होगा, that would contain more grains than a stock of wheat, and the size of the grains is also going to be larger. Therefore, population growth के ऊपर कोई फर्क पड़ेगा इससे? क्या होगा? higher population. Larger the population means larger the workforce. Workforce would be larger. Further, at the same time, because of higher population, the amount of people ready for military service, that would also be larger. Further, because of the high productivity of paddy cultivation, what would happen to agricultural surplus? That would also increase. Higher surplus means more or less demand? More demand. For which there already exists a workforce. That means even higher employment, and higher employment means more income generation, which means more demand as well, right? Further, because of the larger surplus, the tax base is also going to be larger. ठीक है, तो एक तो इस तरह से फायदा हुआ बिकॉज ऑफ फर्टाइल लैंड. क्लियर? सेकेंड लोकेशनल एडवांटेज of Magad. What is it? It was located very close to the Chota Nagpur plateau. Right? छोटा नागपुर प्लाटू से क्या मिल सकता है? Valuable minerals such as iron ore and coal. As a result, the iron industry of Magad is going to be relatively more well developed as compared to the other Mahajanapadas. Is it going to give Magad any advantages with regards to agriculture? Yes, better quality iron implements could be made, better quality iron tools could be made for clearing the forest, for plowing the soil, for harvesting the soil, etc. तो इसका इधर भी फायदा होगा. ठीक है. फर्दर आयरन को और क्या फायदा हो सकता है? मिलिट्री यूज, राइट? सो मिलिट्री वुड ऑल्सो benefit from it. Then the region of Chota Nagpur plateau was extremely heavily forested. And forest से क्या क्या मिल सकता है? You can get both timber for construction of structures, boats, ships, etc. bullock carts, जो भी हो जाए, as well as elephants, wild elephants which could be tamed. तो इसमें फायदा किसको होगा? Both economy को as well as military को. These elephants could be pushed into military service, right? और क्या एडवांटेज है? Economic advantage. Look at this map, right? Now, suppose one was going from, let's say, Ahichatra to all the way to Anga and Tamralipti over here. तो कहाँ से गुजर के निकलना पड़ेगा? पाटलिपुत्र से गुजर के निकलना पड़ेगा, right? Suppose one was going from Shravasti or Vaishali all the way to Potana or the Saurashtra coast. कहाँ से होकर निकलना पड़ेगा? Once again, पाटलिपुत्र से होकर के निकलना पड़ेगा. So Magad lay on the crossroads of important trade routes. So, contemporary texts mention that there was one trade route between Shravasti to Takshila, another trade route between Shravasti to Tamralipti, another trade route between Shravasti to Ujjain and Potana. Potana was also known by the name Potali or Bodhana. Okay? And another trade route connecting Mathura to the Saurashtra coast. Right? Now, all these trade routes were connected to each other through regional nodes, and all of them crossed through Patliputra. Okay? Now, since all these important trade routes cross through Patliputra, what is going to be the result? First of all, Patliputra's trade, Magadhan trade itself, would increase since it has easy access to all parts of the subcontinent. So, local trade would expand. With the expansion of local trade, what is going to happen? Taxes are going to increase. And since all the important trade routes connecting different parts of India pass through Magadha, Magadha will be in a position to tax not only its own local trade, but also whole of India's trade. Okay? So, taxation could also increase. ठीक है, ये हो गए जियो इकोनॉमिक एडवांटेजेस. Next, what do we have to look at? The geo-strategic advantages. Earlier capital of Patliputra, Rajgir. Later capital of Patliputra, sorry, of Magadha, Patliputra. What is the similarity between the two? Both of these are natural fortresses. कैसे? Rajgir is surrounded on all sides by 5 hills. तो 5 हिल्स हैं और उसके बीच में जो कॉनकेव वैली है वहां पे राजगीर बना हुआ है. So what does the defending force need to do? It simply needs to defend the narrow passes between these hills and it will be able to defend its capital very easily. Patliputra is surrounded on 3 sides by river. कौन कौन सी रिवर्स का कॉन्फ्लुएंस होता है पाटलिपुत्र में? गंगा, सोन एंड पुनपुन. ठीक है, Ganga, Son and Punpun. And on the fourth side, on the eastern side, what did the rulers do? They dug a huge ditch. तो उन्होंने एक आर्टिफिशियल डिच डिग किया और उसमें पानी भरवा दिया. Ditch and moat, and they filled that moat with crocodiles. ठीक है. So in this way, Patliputra offered better defense and Rajgir offered better defense than probably any other capital city in the whole of India at that point of time. What were the geo-cultural or geo-ideological differences, advantages? What was the location of Magadha? Was it located in the old Aryavarta? No, it was outside the pale of Aryavarta. Therefore, what would be the relative influence of the Brahmanical orthodoxy over here? High or low? Relatively low. And this is going to result in several advantages. किस तरह के advantages? First of all, Varna based restrictions on occupation, are they going to be observed rigidly? No, they are going to be flouted, resulting in greater economic efficiency. The same is going to be true for the military also. Varna based restrictions on participation in the military are also not going to exist. As a result, what is going to happen? Apart from Kshatriyas, all other groups will be eligible for military service. Then the case could be made Varna based restrictions on education are also not going to exist. So greater intellectual development is going to be there. ठीक है. फर्दर जो दान दक्षिणा का सिस्टम है यहाँ पे बहुत रिजिडली फॉलो होगा? नहीं होगा. एंड दान दक्षिणा सिस्टम किसके एसोसिएशन में होता था? Sacrifices, right? So ritualization of religion would be lower over here. One of the negative effects of ritualization of religion on the farmers was that it was causing large scale cattle slaughter. Many people were having to slaughter their cows, sacrifice their cows in these sacrifices. Therefore, this is also going to result in the preservation of animal wealth. Okay? Which is going to give an added push to the growth of agriculture and the overall economy of the Magadhan state. Further, Because of the lower influence of Brahmanism, what is going to happen? Free exchange of ideas, is that going to take place? Yes. And as a result, because Brahmanism is relatively weaker over here, the heterodox sects such as Buddhism, Jainism, they are going to become more popular over here. The higher popularity of Buddhism and Jainism. As a result, social conditions में कोई change आएगा क्या? The level of conflict, disharmony in the society, will that decline or increase? It will decline. This is going to result in higher social stability and thus also more political stability. ठीक है? So these are the geo-cultural or geo-ideological advantages that Magad had. Now, the argument may be made that while Magad enjoyed significant geographical advantages because of its location, it was not the only Mahajanpad to have a favorable location. Others also enjoyed similar advantages in varying degrees, right? Therefore, there must be some other differentiating factor between those Mahajanpadas and Magad, right? तो यहाँ पे आता है फोर्थ फैक्टर. बताओ क्या रहा होगा? ये एडवांटेजेस हो सकता है किसी और के पास भी हों, लेकिन उनके पास एक ऐसी चीज नहीं थी जो कि मगध के पास थी. व्हाट वाज दैट? रूलर्स विद अ स्ट्रेटेजिक विजन. ठीक है? सो दी Magadhan rulers use the correct combination of strategy, diplomacy, and vision. Not vision. Strategy, diplomacy, aggression to become successful. For example, it was the Magadhan rulers who first began using the tool of matrimonial alliances as a diplomatic tool. It was the Magadhan rulers who for the first time came up with this strategy that a common alliance could be made against a common enemy. Okay? So, military alliances against a common enemy. The Magadhan rulers avoided getting into a conflict with any state which was doing well. Rather, they focused upon absorbing those states which were already failing. So they showed a great amount of opportunism. Okay? And had they not done these things, then इन advantages का कोई फायदा होता? नहीं हो पाता. They would all have been wasted. ठीक है? Take down a question. Discuss The process of Magadha emerging as India's earliest imperial power. Full stop. Enumerate the factors for its success. ठीक है, फैक्टर्स तो आप बता दोगे, जो प्रोसेस है इसके बारे में हमें अभी जानना है. राइट नाउ Magadha during the ancient period up to the post-Mauryan age was ruled by 6 dynasties. सबसे पहला डायनेस्टी Haryanka dynasty with rulers such as Bimbisar, Ajatashatru and Udayan. This was followed by the Sishunak dynasty with its famous rulers being Shishunag and Kalashok. This was followed by the Nanda dynasty with its founder and most powerful ruler being Mahapadmanand. He is regarded to be the first true emperor to emerge in India. He brought a large portion of the North Indian subcontinent under his control. His successor was धनानंद. तो हमें इस स्टेज तक वो प्रोसेस समझना है कि यहाँ से यहाँ तक आते आते कैसे मगध एक महाजनपद से एम्पायर में तब्दील हो गया. Then the other dynasties, later dynasties were the Mauryas, followed by the Shungas, and finally the Kanavas. ठीक है, अब देखते हैं एक एक करके कि इन रूलर्स का कंट्रीब्यूशन क्या था. व्हाट वर देयर अचीवमेंट्स. नाउ इनको अभी आप रहने दीजिए. फर्स्ट लेट अस लुक एट दीज रूलर्स. नाउ कहानी की शुरुआत होती है बिंबिसार से. राइट नाउ बिंबिसार के ईस्ट में which state lay to the east of Magad? Anga, right? So he wanted to annex Anga, but Anga was proving to be problematic. The state of Magad was still quite young, resource base was quite limited. Therefore, Bimbisar entered into a matrimonial alliance with Kausal, and with the help of Kaushal, क्या किया इसने? He annexed Anga. ठीक है? He also assisted Kausal in annexing काशी. कौशल और काशी एक सिंगल स्टेट अब इमर्ज हो गए. ठीक है? Now, next stage of expansion took place under Ajatashatru. Ajatashatru capitalized upon the larger resources available to Magad now, with it having conquered Anga, and utilized his alliance with Kaushal with the backing of Kashi to annex Vajji. ठीक है? Now, अब इस रीजन में दो बड़े पावर्स इमर्ज हो चुके हैं. कौन? मगध और कौशल. So next stage of conflict is going to be between them. Now, using some excuse or the other, Ajatashatru also initiated a conflict with Kaushal and annexed it as well. ठीक है? Annexed Kaushal as well. Right? Now, at this stage, another power was rising towards the south. That is Avanti. Now, Avanti had already annexed Asaka or Asmaka, Shedi, as well as Vatsa. ठीक है? तो this whole region was now under the control of Avanti, and on the other hand, ये वाला जो पूरा region है, that was under the control of Magad. ठीक? So next conflict अब किसके बीच में होगा? Between Avanti and Magad. However, the ruler of Avanti, that is, his name was Chandra Pradyot, he made a mistake. He opened two different fronts. He was an extremely aggressive ruler, right? He attacked Matsya also, Gandhar also, Sursen also, and Magad also, all at the same time. So his forces were stretched in all directions. Magad इसका फायदा उठाएगा. क्या बोलेगा? He would approach Gandhar, Sursen, Matsya and Sursen and form a common alliance with the three. Right? This would take place during the reign of the Shishunag dynasty. So it had annexed these states and it had attacked Matsya, Sursen, Gandhar as well as Magadha. And therefore, Shishunag and Kalashok made a common defensive alliance with them. ठीक है, तो ये एक alliance emerge हो जाएगा. And in the end, what would happen? The combined forces would overcome Avanti, would defeat Avanti. And Magad also annexed Avanti. ठीक है? Then the next stage of imperial expansion would take place under the Nandas. That is Mahapadmananda and Dhanananda. Mahapadmananda, who is now ruling over such a large region, what is he going to do? Who is going to overrun the whole of North India except for Gandhar. ठीक है? He overran the whole of North India and annexed the territory of Matsya, Sursen, Kuru, Panchal, Mallas, राइट. ये जो बच गए थे ये सबको एनेक्स कर लेगा along with a number of smaller Janasanghas such as the Bullis of Alkappa, the Sakyas of Kapilvastu, the Kesalaputtas of कहाँ के थे पिप्पलवन and the Bhaggas of Susumgiri. So not only is Mahapadmananda going to bring this entire region under his control, he is not going to stop here. Rather, he is also going to advance towards the east and south. Right? In fact, this entire region, that is present day Bengal as well as Odisha, is going to be annexed by him. He would be the first ruler of Magad to do so. He was the first ruler to annex Kaling as well. Clear? And this information is in fact mentioned in the Hathi Gumfa inscription. Hathi Gumfa inscription was left behind by which ruler? The ruler of Kaling, Kharvel. He was a member of the Chedi or Mahamegvahan dynasty. तो अभी हमने एक छेदी किंगडम पढ़ा है ना. So it is believed that after it was annexed by Avanti, the ruling class of Chedi of Suktimati migrated towards the east and settled on the coast of Odisha. Over there, they established a new kingdom known as the Chedi kingdom and assumed the name Mahamegvahan dynasty. Right? This was the Mahamegvahan kingdom. Their capital was that of Tosali. Now, Tosali को सबसे पहले किसने conquer किया? It was Mahapadmananda. This fact has been mentioned by Kharvel, one of the rulers of the Mahamegvahan dynasty, in his famous Hathi Gumfa inscription. तो हमको directly उस dynasty के ruler से ये खबर मिलती है. So the first ruler to annex Kalinga, and with this he took the title of Ekrat. Okay. Now, the process of imperial expansion by the Magadhan rulers would continue under the Mauryans as well. Now, sometime during the rule of Chandragupta Maurya, Kalinga had once again slipped out of the Mauryan grasp, out of the Magadhan grasp, and had reasserted its independence. लेकिन चंद्रगुप्त मौर्य क्या करेगा? He is going to focus most of his attention towards the west. ठीक है? That is this region. He is going to overcome the ruler, not only this region, but in fact this whole region. He is going to overcome the ruler of Bactria. तो इस समय तक अलेक्जेंडर का इन्वेजन हो चुका था. अलेक्जेंडर had returned, he had died also, and he had left behind this region to one of his generals. उसका नाम था Seleucus Nicator. Over here, he established a kingdom known as the Bactrian kingdom. Right? Now, Bactria और Mauryans के बीच में हुई लड़ाई, and Mauryans emerged victorious. Chandragupta Maurya took this entire region, ये पूरा region जो है, from Seleucus Nicator as part of his spoils of war. So, Chandragupta Maurya defeated Seleucus Nicator and annexed the whole of the region of Gandhar, including Takshila, the whole of Punjab, Sindh, parts of Balochistan, and the whole of Gujarat as well. ठीक है? Next ruler among Mauryans, बिंदुसार. इसके रेन में क्या होगा? He would annex several territories in the deep south, and he would also overpower several rebellions in North India. तो कई जनसंघास और माइनर रूलर्स ने रिबेल किया था. He successfully suppressed all of them. And Ashoka, what would be his great contribution to the process of empire building? He re-annexed which region? Kaling. ठीक है. So by the end of the reign of Ashok, this whole region which we are seeing in green, this was part of the Mauryan Empire. Okay? Stretching all the way from Afghanistan and Balochistan right up to Bengal, and all the way from Kashmir, including the city of Srinagar, right up to the deep south, as far south as the Krishna River Valley. ठीक है. तो यहाँ तक की टेरिटरी इसने एनेक्स कर लिया था. Okay. So this is the process of state formation of Magad emerging as the earliest imperial power. Clear? So discuss the process of Magad emerging as India's earliest imperial power. Enumerate the factors for its success. कर लोगे? दोनों चीजें हम डिस्कस कर चुके हैं. And that is it for today. I'm ending this lecture now. आगे की कहानी कल की क्लास में. ठीक है. We need to still talk about the Persian and Greek invasions of northwestern India and their impact, their significance in history. And we also need to talk about life during the Mahajanapada age. So economic life हो गया, administrative life हो गया, social life हो गया, religious life हो गया, क्या क्या changes हो रहे हैं क्या. ठीक है. Any doubts?